As you know, a cornerstone of 30 by 30 pledge action items is that they be grounded in research where available. And we are extremely lucky today to be joined by Dr. Jen Rainier of RTI, who's going to give us a little bit of an overview of the research in the space and what we can expect out of the social sciences in the near future. Jen, take it away.
Thank you so much. Everyone can see the slides okay? Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here among this group. And I'm excited to share some initial findings from our research project called From Research to Reality, Recruiting More Women into the Policing Profession. There are a lot of logos on this slide, which I always love talking about because I think one of the great things about this study is the collaborative aspect. So we are doing this in partnership with the National Police Foundation, and we also have NAWLI, Noble, and IAWP as partners in this work. And one of the things that I think is so great about this topic in general is it feels like everyone's really coming together and pooling their resources to figure out what works to move this forward. And there's so much momentum thanks to initiatives like this. And I'm just really excited to present our early work on this topic. So just 2 seconds about me. I'm a research psychologist who studies workplace and workforce issues in RTI International Center for Policing Research and Investigative Science. Previous roles I've occupied include working at Catalyst, which is a nonprofit that does research and consulting on improving opportunities for women in the workplace more generally. So these are issues that are dear to my heart, and I'm so excited to bring my expertise and my research skills to policing. I think there are fewer more important issues today. A quick note about the study overall. So this is an NIJ-funded study to identify more ways to recruit women into policing, and it has 3 phases that all build on each other. The first is to understand current practices and identify strategies for improving recruitment of women into policing. The second utilizes those findings to conduct a large-scale online experiment with both a general population sample and students to test out these potential solutions. And then the highlights from that will be finally implemented in a field study with 2 agencies to actually test out some of these new strategies and look at pre and post administrative data, and also conduct some interviews to understand the impacts of these changes in the real world in agencies. So just a quick note, one of the things that's great about this study is it builds on all the great work that's already been done in this space. Of course, this isn't the first study to look at how to bring more women into policing. There's been a lot done in the last couple of years, but a lot of it has tended to identify the barriers to drawing more women into the field, which of course is important, but there's less that's been done on specific strategies, content for recruitment, strategies and marketing in terms of research-based concrete strategies that show what works. So our study helps to bridge that gap. And I know that Sergeant Gibson and Officer Cherry are some of the exceptions to that. They've also done a bit of work in this space, but really hoping that by the end of this study, we'll be able to show, to you and others dedicated to making a change in this space, these are the kinds of messaging, content, images, strategies that will really help to bring more women, into the field of policing. So today I'm going to be focusing on the initial phase 1 findings of this project, and we did 2 main activities. We did an analysis of agencies' online hiring materials, and we also solicited input from focus groups with over 70 women in law enforcement, and then I'll take just a minute or 2 to talk about what's next. So for the content analysis, what we did is we selected 22 agencies that were different in terms of the overall number of sworn staff, the region of the country, and the agency type, because we know that there are a lot of differences based on those characteristics. And we also looked at agencies that had relatively high and relatively low proportions of women. I mean, as you all know, most agencies don't have a ton of women, right? It's about 12% on average across the nation, but some have, as few as 1 or 2%, and others have more like 30 or 40. So we wanted to see, are there differences in agencies that have managed to recruit relatively more or less proportions of women? We looked at agencies' recruiting websites and also their social media accounts to really look at the following questions. How do agencies address barriers and facilitate entry into policing careers? How is diversity portrayed and described in these materials? And what are the different thematic approaches that agencies use to describe a career in policing? So what we did is we looked at different categories of and different content regarding how these things were being messaged. So we looked at messaging about the academy, were agencies highlighting, the more physical challenge aspect of the academy, or were they focused more on the mental challenge, more of the sort of academic focus, or some combination of both? We looked at sort of how the job and career themselves were being discussed. So there are a few main categories of themes that agencies tend to use when describing the job, right? Some are focused more on challenge, like this example here. So text such as, the nature of our work and the scope of our terrain mean that you will carry a heavier load, really focusing on, this is a really difficult job. Not everybody's cut out to do this work. We're looking for special people who are really up to this challenging task. Others focus more on public service. So, one example here is, I need you to show compassion, and I need you to remember that with every contact, you can build trust within the community. A pretty different focus than what was shown on the previous slide. And others really focus on the benefit of the career. So, for example, the NYPD works to empower all of its employees to pursue fulfilling careers that include the opportunity for continuous learning and professional growth. And it's not that each agency only, portrayed one of these kinds of messages, but one tends to come through as more of the prevalent theme for different agencies. We also looked at how the organization itself was messaged in terms of the strategy of policing employed. Was there more of a focus on, the crime fighting aspect, images that look a bit more militaristic, like what you see on the left, versus a focus on community engagement, or was it sort of a balance of both? And finally, we tried to pull examples of women-specific or diversity-targeted messaging in terms of highlighting women officers, in terms of pictures and profiles and descriptions of their accomplishments. We looked at photos, and we looked at, the extent to which women were portrayed in those images compared to men. And we also looked for examples that just showed, officers and staff kind of outside of work, engaging in the community, engaging with their families. This picture on the right shows an officer being, the coach of a high school sports team. So just these depictions of, people having these whole lives and not just, spending all their time at work. So this is a super high level summary of what we found. We have like a whole report on this that we're hoping to publish soon, and we'll make sure it gets onto the 30 by 30 website. But overall, some of the more important takeaways are that, we were trying to look at, are there key differences between agencies that have more or less women in terms of how they're talking about the job, the kinds of images that they have, how they talk about policing in terms of, are they focusing on the challenge? Are they focusing on the community engagement? And really the patterns were pretty inconsistent, and sometimes in unexpected directions. Like sometimes the agencies that had, almost no women were the ones that had more information on the website about engaging in the community and kind of more of the soft skills that are involved in policing. One of the clear themes that we did find, however, was that agencies with relatively more women were more likely to provide information about policies and practices to promote work-life balance, to provide recruiting resources specifically for women, and to highlight the achievements of women officers. So really, at least in the smaller set of agencies where we did this deep dive, it seemed like it was more about these women-specific resources and highlights as opposed to how the job of policing really was portrayed. And the other thing that I just want to highlight whenever I talk about these kinds of findings is just that it's not that women want one thing overall, as I'm sure you know, and the same with any group of people. I think we tend to look for these solutions of, women respond to this and women don't respond to that. But of course, women, encompass a very diverse group of people. And one of the things that we found in our focus groups, which I'll talk about in just a second, was just, the diversity of interests and needs that women have. So based on this content analysis, our recommendations are that agencies implement and communicate policies and practices to promote work-life balance, which from the intro of this call, I know many of you are already working on, to provide support through the recruitment and application process that's targeted toward women, to highlight the achievements of women officers in recruiting advertising materials, to show prospective female applicants that individuals like them can be successful, and finally, to provide resources and strategies for addressing the physical testing requirements, because most of the websites and recruiting materials did highlight that physical challenge, and we know from talking to women that tends to be one of the biggest barriers is, misunderstanding about what that process entails, or sort of intimidation or concerns around getting through that process. We also conducted focus groups with over 70 women. Unfortunately, I don't have time to go into the details of that, but just keep your eyes peeled on the 30 by 30 website for when we have the report up about that. But the recommendations that we got, sort of big picture from that, are kind of similar but unique in some ways. So those women that we talked to who are at different points in their careers in different roles provided the following recommendations, which include providing a realistic preview of the job. Some of the conversations that I've had, including with folks on this call, is that, we tend to look at things sort of in a dichotomous way. Are we talking about community oriented or, protecting public safety and fighting crime? And really the job is complex, and it incorporates a bunch of different characteristics. And so making sure that the way that we talk about the job is accurate. And one thing I just want to close with is quickly what's next. So we're taking all the learnings from everything that I tried to go through super quickly, and we're doing an experiment with hundreds of people, which I'm so excited about. So we're going to be doing an experiment with both criminal justice students and other majors, as well as the general population, to test out basically these mock recruiting materials that we've created, and to have people rank them, tell us what they like about the ads, how much they resonate with them, and then how these different types of messaging and different types of advertisement and communication affect their interest in policing, their willingness to join policing, their interest in applying to these hypothetical police agencies. So I'm really excited for, later in the project when we'll be able to show you, which social media ads, which videos, which web content seems to really resonate, not only with women, but with men and diverse folks all around. So I will stop there because I know there's a lot of other great speakers to talk, but thank you for your time, and I look forward to sharing more about the project as we continue.
Dr. Raniere, thank you so much. That was absolutely fantastic. Really exciting to see the evidence base growing here. Hopefully we will have time at the end for questions, but if anybody has any immediate reactions or questions for Dr. Raniere, please feel free to just throw it in the chat. Now really excited to turn things over to, I believe, our newest 30 by 30 participating agency, the San Diego Police Department. Captain Rudy Tai is here to share a little bit about what they just went through with regards to a women's hiring expo in San Diego.
Thank you so much for allowing us to participate. And Dr. Raniere, that's really good information. A lot of ideas that you hit upon, we actually came across ourselves. So just wanted to share that. Overall, when you look at our department, just a quick snapshot, we're about 1,920 officers. And we really wanted to look at the demographics within our department. So we went back to 2011 and just to look at how many females we had at that time. We had about 14.4%. We fast forward to 2021, we're at 16.6%. So like the doctor mentioned, we're above the average of 12% overall. Of course, our goal is 30%. We're projecting to have 20% females in our next academy. We do 4 academies a year, 50 plus each academy. So, but when we looked at the demographics, of course, we want to really replicate what the population, what we can reflect that as far as the population. And we try to really, we call it strategic recruiting, where we want to really pinpoint and look at the data. A lot of times I think we kind of skim over the data and we think we're doing all the right things, but we took our time to really look at the data and start to do some surveys with a lot of female applicants that were going through our process. And one of the things that we realized right away is sometimes they felt like they weren't connected or they didn't have these role models or mentors early on in the process. So with that, we formed a committee and came up with a women-only expo. And we wanted to make sure that everybody was on board with it. And our mayor, he has an initiative as well, a diversity, inclusive, equity initiative, and our chief was on top of it. So we had support from them from the get-go. And they came up with the idea, let's do a press conference, let's get the information out. So we did a press conference before we actually did our expo. And that really garnered a lot of attention, not only locally, but actually from northern parts of California. And so a lot of people follow us on Instagram, and all of a sudden after that press conference, we've seen a lot of activity on social media. So that really helped us out. We weren't sure how many people we were going to get initially. The first week we had about 10, 20. I'm like, hey, our goal is 50 plus. We ended up with about 100 people signing up, and 75 plus actually attending the event. So we wanted to really focus and hone in on some talents of our women in our department, and we have some great talented leaders. Our highest ranking female police chief, Sandra Elberson, she was kind of like the headliner, and we had our mayor as well as our chief come out and talk about the importance of diversity and having women in our department and how it's so important. And we wanted to highlight all the successes, which Dr. mentioned about these women in our department. Very proud of their accomplishments. So when we set that up, we looked at the agenda, and the agenda is we wanted to have some type of fitness expo as well, where we would get people out there and we do some physical activity, more stages and stations. Because what we found out is a lot of people, especially a younger generation, like to go out and work out. So we didn't do anything rigorous, but that was going to be part of the agenda, along with demonstrations. And this is where we go back to our canine officers, our SWAT officers, our homeless outreach team, our detectives. And the big thing that came out was work-life and balance. That was a big thing that we noticed, and we started to hear with conversations. There's a lot of one-on-one mentoring going on during breaks, which we're really proud of. But what happened is we broke people up into groups, and they would go into the SWAT demonstration. So we have a number of SWAT female officers, and they do incredible jobs out there. Not traditional, but they were out there. And so you had a group of women that were meeting with them, connecting with them, and kind of hearing like, wow, if they can do it, I can do it. And they're sharing that story with them, why they wanted to be a police officer, how they got into this profession, and the support that they feel on this department. The same thing, that group would move over to the canine unit, and the canine officers. We have a couple of females that are in there, and they would provide their story as well, how challenging and obstacles that they face, and then as well as give them some insight, some encouragement. And then we had a final hour where we just did a open panel where we had female detectives from homicide to gangs, to the backgrounds, along with officers working in different capacities, along with their chief. And then they just opened up and shared information with them. So we really felt that connection between other females. So when we did an eval, we did get some information flowing back to us where they felt very inspired. They felt like it gave them more confidence in actually achieving things, whereas before they never had anything like that before. And keep in mind, we had people not in the city of San Diego, outside of our city, coming down because they don't have this anywhere else. At least we didn't know that we're aware of, and they felt like, you know, this would be a great opportunity. At least get to know what law enforcement is about, make some connections, be confident, and if they want to go through our process. We also look at our hiring process, and we share that with them. And
I have no clue. This is what they wanted us to listen.
And going back to the women in recruiting, when we got the feedback from them, a lot of them wanted to understand what the hiring process was about. They wanted to hear stories from other women that were successful in law enforcement. They wanted to see, because it gave them, no doubt in my mind, it gave them that inspiration that, you know, I think it can do it. And we hear quotes from our own recruiting detectives, and the way we wanted to spin it is we wanted to make sure that it was a women-only expo. So all the women, they put everything together, and we just, you know, supported them from our perspective. But very, very successful on our perspective. We're going to do another one. We're planning to do another one next year where we get more people. We looked at how we could have done better. And we're thinking is increase our committee and really not have it just for half a day, but probably do a full day, potentially with doing and showing them how to do the physical agility tests, providing some helpful hints. We do that on a regular basis. And sometimes that could be an obstacle for women, sometimes an obstacle for men, just kind of depending on their fitness level, as well as, you know, getting other people involved. So just a quick overview of what we did. And it was very helpful, and anybody won't have any questions or you want any information, I'll be happy to share that with you.
Thank you so much, Captain Ty. That's really exciting. One quick question before you put yourself on mute. Did you experience any pushback for specifically focusing on potential women recruits in this extra effort?
No specific pushback, but I hear comments like, we're just doing a women's expo. With that, we do a expo for everyone. So, you know, that happens every 6 months as well.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And just as a reminder, if you have any immediate questions or feedback, please feel free to go ahead and drop it in the chat, and we will try and get to some questions before we end today. Next, going to turn things over to Captain Tony Marlowe, and I feel bad. I feel like Captain Marlowe was basically just punished for good behavior. We had an opportunity to connect last week, and when he told me what he was up to, I begged him to share it with you all as well. So thank you so much, Captain Marlowe, for hopping in and being willing to share what you're up to at the Orange County Sheriff's Office.
No problem. Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, again, my name is Tony Marlowe, and I'm a captain with the Sheriff's Office on behalf of Sheriff Mina and the 2,600 women and men of our agency. I bring you greetings from sunny Orlando, Florida. So I just want to thank you for the opportunity to talk about the women recruitment and mentoring efforts that we have in the Sheriff's Office. Here's a snapshot of our agency. Currently, we have 1,814 sworn positions. On board, we have 1,644, and 254 of them are female. So we're at just above the average at about 15.5%. For our recruiting efforts, the sheriff is very, very cognizant of women and their role in law enforcement, and to show his commitment to bringing more females on board. We have 2 female recruiters in our human resources department. We basically travel to military installations, academies, job fairs, and community events. We've hosted ever since COVID, or the pandemic took place. We've had some success hosting some Facebook Live events and some Zoom recruiting events where we've had where people were able to engage with some of our personnel, female personnel, live and talk about some of our, what it's like to be a female deputy. We also have a women's forum panel, which we've been doing that for 4 consecutive years. And we bring in a lot of our women, some of our sworn women to come in and sit down and talk about what it's like to be a deputy sheriff. And we've had some success. We usually do it annually at our Safety Expo, but which is kind of a career fair for the Sheriff's Office, where we talk about what we have to offer. And we really found a lot of success with having women to be able to come in specifically and talk to other women about what it's like to be in law enforcement. And we also, to help retain some of our recruits, we have what we call Challenges in Law Enforcement for Women. And that's where we have a lot of the women in the Sheriff's Office. We have some female speakers that'll come in to talk about some of the lessons learned since they've been on the job, and what has helped them be successful. We also have a Women of OCSO monthly meetings that we've been doing for 3 consecutive years. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in our mentoring section. Here, we also recruit with the military. Here is pictured to the right is Chief Demps. She's the highest ranking female deputy in the agency. We have our rank structure is sheriff, under sheriff, and then we have 2 chief deputies. And so she's also a high-ranking military personnel. And so we're actively going out seeking females at military bases across the Southeast. Here, we really utilize our social media to maximize the potential of us targeting women. Here is one of our female recruiters. This is Jessica Ramirez Delgado on one of our Facebook Live events that we put out before her event. And we love spreading the word via social media about our hiring efforts. We also utilize other literature to highlight women in a non-traditional role like K9. And this young lady, she used to be a recruiter for us, but she left and went over to K9, and she's really been doing a good job for us. Here, earlier we talked about highlighting the success of our women when they are accomplishing great tasks. And here's another, shortly after Chief Demps got promoted, we put it out on social media, celebrating the accomplishment of her rise through the ranks. We also reinforcement through all of our social media platforms, strong women making a difference. I really like that picture because it shows that we're trying to make sure that the demographics of our agency match the demographics of our community, and any woman in our community can look and see themselves, being an Orange County deputy or in uniform. We also have another one with Chief Demps, again, with one of her sayings that she served with respect. And we also highlighted in Mother's Day, some of our the mothers that we have throughout the organization, to show that you can be a mother and you can be a deputy at the same time. As far as what we're doing mentoring wise, we have what we call the Women of OCSO, which is an acronym that stands for Women of Orange County Sheriff's Office Mentoring and Enrichment Network. And you know, their mission is to bring together a diverse group of certified and civilian Orange County Sheriff's Office women and provide opportunities for personal and professional growth while being mentored by other successful professional women who have walked in their shoes. Up front, you'll see Chief Demps again. This is they meet monthly, and I've been to at least one of their meetings, and they really get in there and they talk about not only the challenges, but some of the successes. And they each go out and they mentor each other, which we think is important. And the sheriff definitely values what these strong women are bringing to the table to help make our organization better. And for future goals for our recruitment, we're going to continue to utilize our social media platforms. And we want to try to get a women's recruitment billboard. So as you're driving around in Orlando, we want to have one that specifically is targeting women, similar to some of our other social media literature that we're putting out there in a women's forum. And so our women's forum is similar to what the captain from San Diego was talking about, where we have our women deputies that are up there talking about everything that we have to offer in our organization, to talk about what it's like to be a deputy sheriff and the different opportunities that we have at this organization for them to exceed and excel. That's all I have, Mo.
Absolutely fantastic. I'm impressed you were able to get all of that in such a short amount of time. Thank you so much, Captain Marlowe. You know, one of the things that really strikes me about your department is sort of the consistency and the intentionality. You know, it really seems like improving gender diversity is sort of woven out through your recruitment strategy. And it's really good to see also some really interesting use of social media there. So I'm sure we'll probably have some questions for you about how to sustain that moving forward. Okay, next up, we've got Sergeant Gibson and Officer Cherry from the Charleston Police Department. If you all were at IACP, perhaps you caught their virtual presentation about the research partnership that they've established and the evidence-based recruitment video that they were able to produce. But Sergeant Gibson and Officer Cherry, floor is yours. Thanks so much.
Great, thank you. So Chair and I are in separate locations currently, and I hope you can hear me okay. Perfect. So I'm just going to give essentially the 30,000-foot view of what we have here, what we do in our unit, because I'm no fool and I'm not going to go and speak after Officer Cherry, because we all know that she's remarkable. So at the Charleston Police Department, and frankly across the nation, we often hear that the challenges of law enforcement, we often hear about the overwhelming challenges of recruitment and law enforcement. But my unit has actually seized this change in recruitment and expectation of recruitment as an opportunity. This is an opportunity for us to advance diversity, to expand our strategies, to harness the power and the reach of media, technology, and more importantly, an exceptional customer service approach. So what we do is we couple the behind the scenes research and our evidence-based approaches, and we pair these efforts with our high touch methodology. Because police recruitment and selection is so filtered, it's so dynamic, we found that the team approach is the model that best fits for us. So everyone in my unit has a very, very specific role in the recruitment, selection, and the entire hiring process. And at any given point, an applicant, they're going to be able to contact a member of the team with any questions or concerns that they have, as they're guided, and more importantly, as they're mentored through the entire application and hiring process. We also remember that the relationship from telling somebody no is just as important as the yes. So an unsuccessful applicant now can be grown into a successful applicant later. And this is especially true as we start to recalibrate and reorganize and remeasure how we're looking and deciphering through which applicant was hired and not. And also, this is really important as we eliminate and identify our adverse impacts in our applicant pool. So with that being said, it's important that our unit's strategic plan, messaging, and brand are driven by data and research, with a professional atmosphere open to developing academic partnerships. Shout out to Dr. Rainier, who we just talked to not too long ago, actually, about opening up another partnership, because we currently have a partnership with Clemson University, and I'll let Officer Cherry explain that a little bit more. But our dynamic is Cherry is certainly the research and the creative, and I'm the practitioner and the implementarian is what I call it. So evidence-based recruitment strategies, they're great. But without the implementation and assessment, it stays in the theory stratosphere and the impact is completely limited. So our unit has developed numerous research partnerships to provide us with the data, the direction, and the precise solutions for both simple and complex problems that we face. This is mainly for our recruitment world, and especially for our deliberately created recruitment video. And as it's relevant to 3030 initiative where we're at currently, I'm very happy to report, I ran the report today, and the percentage of female applicants has increased from 18% in 2020 to 23% so far in 2021. And I'm also finding that our recruitment classes are averaging in the upper 20% for female recruits so far this year. Cherry.
Thank you, Sergeant Gibson. So as it relates to our recruitment research, we were in need of a recruiting video. I attended the PERF conference in 2018, and they did a section on recruitment videos as related to tactical versus community. But I thought, well, how do they figure out this information? How do they figure out how they want to brand the video? Who makes the decisions? And so I talked to Dr. McLean, who was a Leeds academic at the time, and we put together a study. Now, I know that most police departments don't necessarily want to do all of the research, so I'm going to kind of skip over the research part, but our findings were basically that college-age people, women, minorities, and men, want to make an impact in policing. They want to make a change internally while also making external impact in the community. And why that was important is it didn't say that they didn't want any SWAT. The people that want SWAT are going to come. So you don't have to take it totally out. But if you want people who are different and different to what is usually coming, including women, then you have to cater to the attraction of that, to the idea that we all have a way to change policing. And policing's been very stagnant for a while. And so we now had to take that research and that notion, and we had to make it visual. Well, most of policing videos, I would say, based on me calling around and speaking to people, were made by third-party entities that were paid a large amount of money, and oftentimes the visual was produced by men. So we thought, hey, it might be interesting to get a female perspective. So a female local community member who's an artist was selected with a local cinematographer who was also female to do the vision of the video. So we took the actual research, the vision of those women, and then Sergeant Gibson helped implement it to create this now evidence-based recruitment video. What's really interesting is we do a lot of research, we have a lot of committees that talk about a lot of things, but oftentimes it lives in an academic world that never gets placed into reality. And that's what we're trying to do in recruitment. We're trying to take the findings that we have and actually make change. And as you can see, we ran those numbers, we actually are increasing women in policing. And that's not just the only way. There are a multitude of ways that I could go into, but we can't today because there's not enough time. But what I will say is if you guys want the PowerPoint for IACP or the American Society for Evidence-Based Policing we did, please feel free to reach out to us. Sergeant Gibson's going to list it in the chat. So call us, email us. We're happy to share it. We're happy to share how we're doing what we're doing. Our idea too is that it's really important nationally to share what we're doing to help other agencies, because we want to leave a legacy not just on Charleston Police Department and recruitment, but on a national stage. So if you have questions about that, please let me know. But a really exciting time to be in law enforcement, really exciting time to do recruitment, and I'll hand it back to Mo. Really appreciate the time to speak.
Thanks so much for making the time. It looks like you're knee deep in your actual job. So thank you so much.
I'm recruiting. I was recruiting in the upstate.
There you go. Is it okay for me to drop a link to the video in the chat? Because I've got it, but I don't want to get out ahead of you if you haven't released it yet.
No, and the video. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, awesome. And I'm curious, where are you distributing the video? What's your distribution strategy? Can you share a little bit about that?
So currently, so we're working with Dr. McLean on our measures. So we've had to keep it relatively limited so far. So right now we're keeping our measures off of our own internal departmental social media pages. So Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and we keep who's getting there, the length of the video that they watch. So we have the 3 sources that we're looking at. But we're looking to actually expand that further through and try to capture the measure of internal people who share it. How we're going to do that, I have no idea, but we know that internally officers are the best recruiters that we have. So what does that look like in terms of getting the video out there, and how do we increase that? But right now we're focusing on the 3 to kind of hone that in a little bit.
And the main platform is YouTube. So we placed it on YouTube and then disseminate it on those initial platforms.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That's really exciting. And really looking forward to seeing the type of response that you get after that video comes out and what results Dr. McLean shows. So please definitely keep us posted. All right, we're actually doing pretty well on time. Now really excited to turn things over to Chief Clary in Bellevue. Chief Clary recently had some pretty impressive numbers in terms of the representation of women in his recruit class. So we've asked him to share a little bit about his strategies for making that happen.
I appreciate the opportunity to join everybody on this call. First of all, like Mo said, Ken Clary, the chief in Bellevue, Nebraska. Those of you who aren't familiar, Bellevue is the largest suburb of Omaha. We're located just south of Omaha, 64,000 population, got about 100 sworn officers. Been with the department for 13 months. Coming in the door, we were 5 to 6% female. Unfortunately, we lost a couple of female right out of the chute, one to retirement, the first ever female to retire from our organization, which is pretty telling when it comes to culture, unfortunately. But we made it a point to incorporate a lot of the ideas that have already been discussed. A lot of what I'm going to talk about is actually review of best practices and evidence-based policing practices that we have seen to be beneficial in our agency. So, first and foremost, to reiterate what Sergeant Gibson said, you have to be deliberate. These things don't happen by chance. The old adage that, we do the same things over and over and again and, expect different results. That is insanity. So, we have to dedicate the resources. We have to target our efforts. As Jen Rainier said, you really have to target to the types of people that you're looking to recruit to your agency. You have to empower those people. So, the idea of people like myself, middle-aged white males who run the majority of police organizations around the country, we have to give up control of the message and allow those people that can speak to the people who are trying to recruit to craft that message that will resound with them. We have to be willing to do that, give them the resources needed to be successful. There are a number of ways that we tried to do that. I brought in, early on in my tenure as chief here, I brought in a new head of recruiting. We didn't have that position previously. He then put together a recruiting team, a very diverse recruiting team that could craft the message again that resounds with the young people that we're trying to recruit, women, people of color, those things to make ourselves more diverse. Like Captain Ty and Captain Marlowe stated, we have to allow them to tell their story. People have to have mentors, people that look to see that they can be successful in an organization, or they're likely not going to be willing to go. As you know, police organizations are seen to be paramilitary, rigid, things like that. So especially women need to understand that they can fit, they have a place. They're actually some of the best officers that we have in today's police force. So allowing them to recruit on our behalf, crafting the message and giving them the resources. Some of the resources that we've given them here in the police department, they're free. Facebook Live, we did a Facebook Live event fairly early on as we began to recruit, but it wasn't about doing that event. It was about who we put in front of the camera, put a very diverse group. We allowed people in the audience to text in questions. We answered those questions, but again, coming back to it, these women told their story about what it's like to be in the department, what it's like to be a police officer, and why Bellevue is the place for them, why they feel like they fit here. Beyond the Facebook Live event, we also have a YouTube channel where we put 2 to 5 minute videos out, generally about once a month. But we did a whole series on the women that were here in the department, allowing them to tell their story. Again, what's good, what's bad. Be honest about what it is to be a police officer so that people will see it. They realize that you're not trying to sell them a bill of goods. So like I said, we were 5 to 6% women when I came in the door. The most recent hiring, we were able to hire 9 of 12 of our recruits to be women. So we've effectively gone from 5 to 6% women to where we'll be about 14% in about a 1 year time period with this effort. You talk about pushback, Mo, you asked that question specifically. I wouldn't say there was really outward pushback, but a lot of questions. People think that we're passing up other applicants to get to these women. But I will tell you wholeheartely that when the women are applying, they're settling to the top. They have a better ability to communicate. They do a better job on oral board. They've done better on our written testing. They settle out to the top, and we're simply hiring those people according to their ability. And I had to reiterate that because there is a little bit of pushback that we're targeting those people, but it's truly not correct. We're hiring the best candidates when we get them to apply. And again, doesn't happen by chance. So, beyond that, I want to speak just a little bit about retention. I think policing is stepping up their game when it comes to recruitment, but we're not going to keep women in policing if the culture is not there. So we really have to be intentional about allowing the people that we're having to recruit for us to set the tone in our departments, help create the policy, have the voice in policy, writing policy, so that it becomes welcoming. You don't have policy that's inadvertently hindering women or any certain minority. We have to vet all of these things. Unfortunately, women leave policing at a higher rate than males do as well. So, we have to be diligent about ensuring that we follow up on the backside of this as well. So again, just reiterating what the entire group said, I'm just trying to create a pathway for smaller agencies. We're 100, we're bigger than 85% of the police agencies in the United States, but I think a lot of the smaller agencies can see what resources we've been able to dedicate and replicate that, hopefully moving forward. Because if we're really going to move the bar on women in policing, the smaller agencies have to get on board as well. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Mo, and we can move on to questions, hopefully.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much, Ken. And point really well taken about allowing the people who are recruiting and who are most frequently engaged with possible recruits to really help set the tone for the agency as a whole. I think it's a point that's missed often, and kudos to you and the incredible work that you're able to do in Bellevue. I think you are inspiring to a lot of us to keep going. Really great point in the chat about the importance of your points, and also that when you start talking about recruiting different demographic groups, people tend to associate that with lowering the bar somehow. And just reiterating that when we're talking about recruiting here at 30 by 30, and I'm sure this is how you all are thinking about it as well, what we're talking about is, if we're talking about changing assessment, it's to make them more accurate. And if we're talking about targeting different people in recruiting, it's people that haven't historically been spoken to before. And when we talk about things like messaging, it's not to lie about what policing is, but it is a very big, very broad profession. And it's just about focusing on the elements of policing that are most going to resonate with the people that you're trying to get in the door.